The Supreme Court has delivered a major blow to the Trump administration's trade policy, blocking the sweeping tariffs imposed during his first term and expanded since his return to office in 2025. This ruling fundamentally reshapes American economic strategy and reasserts a key constitutional principle. Congress, not the president, controls the power of the purse in foreign commerce. Tariffs are taxes on imported goods, designed to make foreign products more expensive and encourage domestic consumption. But they can also trigger trade wars, raise prices, and disrupt global supply chains. The court's decision answers a critical question. Can the president unilaterally impose wide-ranging tariffs by declaring a national emergency? The answer is no. Congress holds that authority. Thousands of American companies had argued the tariffs were unlawful, claiming the president overstepped constitutional bounds. The ruling not only invalidates these tariffs but also serves as a powerful check on executive power, unwinding a cornerstone of the Trump administration's economic agenda. Now the nation faces practical challenges, refunding billions, recalibrating trade relationships, and rethinking future policy. The Supreme Court has spoken, and the economic and political reverberations are just beginning. The focus now shifts to how the U.S. will conduct trade policy in the years ahead. The tariffs at the center of this legal battle began in 2018, targeting China and even U.S. allies like Canada and the EU. The administration's rationale counter unfair trade practices, intellectual property theft, and a trade deficit that they argued weakened American manufacturing. Tariffs were imposed on hundreds of billions in goods, steel, aluminum, electronics, clothing, touching nearly every sector. The goal: make Chinese products expensive, push companies to move supply chains, and revitalize U.S. industry. The impact was immediate. Businesses faced soaring costs, many passed them to consumers, and American families paid more for everyday items. Small businesses and farmers were hit hard, especially as China retaliated with tariffs on U.S. agriculture. Despite the pain, the administration doubled down, expanding tariffs and defending them as essential for national interests. This aggressive approach set the stage for a legal showdown over presidential power in global trade. The Supreme Court's intervention was inevitable, as the economic and political stakes grew. At the heart of the legal fight was a fundamental question: who controls U.S. trade policy, Congress or the president? The Constitution grants Congress the power to regulate commerce and set tariffs, while the president enforces those laws. The Trump administration argued the president could act unilaterally under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, claiming trade practices by countries like China were a national emergency. This was a novel use of IEPA, originally meant for threats like terrorism, not broad economic disputes. Critics argued this stretched the definition of emergency and undermined Congress's constitutional authority. Plaintiffs warned that letting the president declare economic disputes as emergencies would give the executive unchecked power over trade. Legal experts compared the case to the 1952 Youngstown decision, where the Supreme Court limited presidential power during the Korean War. The court's framework: the president's authority is weakest when acting against Congress's will. By creating his own trade regime, the president set up a monumental constitutional conflict. Only the Supreme Court could resolve this clash over the separation of powers. The outcome would redefine the limits of executive authority in economic policy. The Supreme Court's ruling was clear. The president exceeded his authority by imposing sweeping tariffs without congressional approval. The majority opinion found that using trade deficits or economic competition as a national emergency was an overreach. The court reaffirmed that regulating foreign commerce is Congress's responsibility, and the executive cannot bypass this by declaring emergencies. Previous trade laws allowed limited presidential action, but required investigations and justifications. Steps the administration sidestepped. The decision nullifies the tariffs, declaring them unconstitutional and illegal from the start. This halts a central pillar of the administration's economic policy and marks a major legal defeat for the White House. Attention now turns to the complex process of unwinding years of tariff-driven policy. The end of the tariffs brings immediate relief for American businesses and consumers. Manufacturers relying on imports will see costs drop, boosting competitiveness and profitability. Consumers should benefit from lower prices on goods like electronics, appliances, and clothing, as retailers pass on savings. Inflationary pressures may ease, increasing families' purchasing power. However, industries once protected by tariffs, like steel and aluminum, now face renewed foreign competition and potential job losses. The ruling creates winners and losers, and the government may need to support affected sectors. Businesses, after years of uncertainty, can now plan with more stability, though some may question costly supply chain moves made during the trade war. The new landscape offers predictability, but also demands rapid adaptation. With the tariffs ruled illegal, the government faces the daunting task of refunding billions collected from American companies. This could become one of the largest payouts to the private sector in U.S. history, requiring years of administrative work to verify and process claims. Companies may also seek interest on the refunded sums, further complicating the process. The economic impact could be significant, injecting capital into businesses, spurring investment, and potentially boosting growth. But the refunds will also blow a hole in the federal budget, widening the deficit. Politically, the administration and Congress must now manage the fallout, with pressure to oversee the refund process and address fiscal challenges. For businesses, it's a long-awaited vindication, but the path to repayment will be slow and complex. The refund chaos is just beginning. The Supreme Court's decision will reshape America's global trade relationships. For China and other targeted nations, the ruling removes a major point of friction and could de-escalate the trade war. Allies hit by tariffs, like the EU and Canada, will welcome the move, seeing it as a return to predictable, rules-based trade. The U.S. now appears more stable and less prone to sudden executive action, strengthening its credibility abroad. However, losing tariffs as leverage complicates future negotiations. The administration must find new ways to achieve trade goals. With Congress back in control, future trade policy will require broader political consensus. Foreign partners will watch closely for signals from Congress on America's trade direction. The ruling forces a national conversation about the U.S. role in the global economy. The Supreme Court's decision marks a pivotal moment, restoring Congress's authority over trade and reining in executive overreach. The ruling promises lower prices for consumers and relief for many businesses, but also challenges for industries losing tariff protection and for the federal budget. Policymakers must now manage the transition, balancing opportunities and disruptions. On the world stage, the U.S. shifts toward a more predictable, collaborative approach to trade, enhancing its credibility with allies and partners. The era of sudden executive-driven trade shocks may be over, with Congress now setting the course. The decision closes a contentious chapter and opens a new one, reinforcing checks and balances at the heart of American democracy. The future of U.S. trade will be shaped by debate and consensus in Congress, not unilateral action. The path forward is uncertain, but the map is now firmly in the hands of the people's representatives.